Hi, and welcome back to Purple Color Life. It is an absolutely gorgeous day out here at the end of February, and in today's video we're talking about the shelf life of firewood. So on beautiful days like today, makes me think of summer. I like to get the equipment pulled out of the building, let it run for a little bit, let it warm up. So you can see I've got the side-by-side out, I've got the Mini X out, I've got the old Ford tractor out, and the log splitters warming up. But today's video, like I said in the beginning, we're talking about shelf life of firewood. Does firewood have a shelf life? Absolutely. And that shelf life actually starts before you even cut the tree down. So when you're looking at a tree like this nice oak behind me, this tree is going to be great, it's still growing, and this is not something we would cut down just for firewood. But if it would happen to fall down, or since we're close to the electric right away here, if at some time the electric company decides it has to come down because it's putting the lines in peril, then this could become firewood. And this oak, as long as it's still living, standing here, until it comes down, that shelf life does not start yet. But if we take a short walk from this oak further into the woods, okay, now behind me here I've got a couple cherry trees. This is a nice live cherry tree. Again, this shelf life has not started, but just a few feet from it, this cherry tree, the shelf life's already expired. Let's take a closer look at this. You can see this has been standing and dead, and it is completely pithy and ruined. As you look up the tree, there's probably not any good firewood in that tree if we would take it down. So there's an example of a tree where the shelf life has not only already started, but that wood is expired. Now I should note in this video that I'm talking about the shelf life of wood for firewood in something like an indoor wood stove like ours. There is a little bit longer shelf life if you're just burning an outside for pleasure fire. But even in that case, once the wood is kind of rotted and pithy, it's not going to burn very good. It's going to be a little bit more smoky. And that's not exactly the type of wood you want if you're trying to enjoy a nice fire outside, cooking s'mores or some hot dogs or mountain pies. You still want pretty good, decent wood to even do those fun activities when you're not thinking about heating your home. I brought the Splitfire 3465 out here because I've got some wood that's been stacked along the garage for about 6 months now, maybe a little bit longer. So yes, the shelf life has already started on that wood. But before we start splitting this, I want to talk to you about what is shelf life and what variables there are, because there are many variables to the shelf life of a piece of firewood. Even though it's nice and sunny out, the ground is still frozen here. You can see all that ice, which is good because that means my walk into these IBC totes of firewood should not get my feet soaking wet. It's just starting to thaw. You can see right here, you can hear the crunch under my feet, but you can see that some of this water is starting to thaw. But let's talk about firewood shelf life. So this is firewood that's been here for probably 3 years now. We split this wood during the winter that we ran out of firewood. That was the winter of COVID. A couple notes: we do have the rain caps on our IBC totes, so most of this wood is protected from the elements. It is somewhat in the woods here, so that also helps protect it, and that makes it season a little bit slower because it's not in much sunlight. So let's take a look at this. So like here's a piece, you can see the rain cap isn't fully covering this one. and it is fully seasoned, and it's not started to rot yet. But it also somewhat depends on the species of wood. So a lot of what's in here is maple. There is some cherry, but I'll tell you up front that cherry is the wood that has the shortest shelf life of the firewood that we get here on our own property. We have oak, hickory, maple, and cherry primarily, and cherry is easily the one with the shortest shelf life, especially if it's left out in the elements. You can actually see what starts to happen to the cherry here on this piece. It kind of usually starts on the outside. It gets a little soft and pithy. You can chip away at it here. And depending on when this wood was taken down, that may have actually started while it was standing. Whereas oak and maple stay a little bit more solid, at least on the outsides. In my experience with firewood, see, here's a piece that's pretty pithy. That's not going to be a great piece of firewood. Like I said, that's been out here for about 3 years. We also have all that firewood that I've got stacked in the basement. There's probably half a cord left in there. That's firewood that was stored inside for the last 2.5 years and outside for about 4 years prior to that. That firewood still has a little bit of time before its expiration date because of that storing inside and how well it was stored outside. Under tin cover, completely covered with tarps except for on the nice sunny days like today. So that firewood, the shelf life's a little bit longer than firewood that's stored outside in our IBC totes, or firewood that's stored outside with no cover. And remember, I'm talking about Pennsylvania hardwoods here. So we mentioned maple, hickory, oak, and cherry are the primary species we have here on our property. So that's the wood I'm talking about. But I'm looking for those comments down below for the types of wood that I don't know anything about because I've never had them, I've never stored them. Leave those comments on your thoughts on shelf life on firewood. What wood lasts the longest stored, because you want to be able to store it so that you have it when you need it, but at the same time you don't want to store it so long that it rots before you get a chance to burn it. Now we're going to go ahead and split this maple firewood, and then I'll take you up in the woods to our firewood storage area and we'll take a look at how that wood is holding up. As is always the case, the split fire did a great job splitting this, and I'll say this maple has used some of its shelf life already, just sitting out here along the garage for 6 months or longer. It's been exposed to the weather, the snow, the rain, some sunshine. This side of the garage gets a lot of sunshine, so it is already started to season, but it'll season better now that it's split. But the shelf life clock has already started ticking. So this is firewood that I will want to burn next winter, or possibly take if we go camping or something like that within our general region. I also thought I should talk about the split fire for a minute. I do show the split fire splitters on our channel. This is a splitter that works really good for us, but I've had some comments, some people saying both sides of the spectrum. Some people are saying, oh, that's not a professional grade splitter. Well, This is the splitter that works really good for us. We don't need to spend more money to get a splitter that would be professional grade when we're just splitting wood for our own use. Then we've also had comments on the other end of the spectrum that say things like, that's too much splitter, you can get a cheaper splitter if you don't need the log lift at the box store. And that's somewhat true. You can find cheaper splitters than this. But in my mind, for the value for the price, getting the log lift, the two-way splitting, it just made sense to me. But like Mike Morgan always says on his videos, he doesn't care what anybody else does with their money, and I'm in that same boat. I hope that everybody can make their own decisions based on what type of equipment they need for their use. I'm just showing you how we use this equipment for our use here at Purple Collar Life. So yes, it might be like the Three Bears. For some people, this is way too small, not heavy duty enough. For other people, this might be overkill, but for us, it's just right. I went ahead and disconnected the log splitter because we're taking this load of maple up into the woods. But I wanted to take a moment here to say, you know, it is so nice and sunny out, but don't let that trick you. It is only about 36 degrees out, so it's still a little bit chilly. And it can be really tempting to stay inside where I've got a nice warm fire going and work on something inside. But I couldn't resist the sun, and I'm so glad I came out today to split just a little bit of wood, get some stuff cleaned up, get the machines running out here in the sunshine. You get that sunshine on your face, nice, and even though it's not that warm, nice to be outside doing something again after what was a mild winter, but still kind of a long winter it felt like. So let's get this maple up into the woods, and we'll show you the wood that's up there that's been seasoning for 2 years. We'll kind of compare that to what we've got so far. So this oak is still in really good shape, lots of shelf life left. You can see it is covered up. It gets some sunshine out here, it does get some wind, but most of the weather stays off of it. Getting into some maple here, that still looks good also. This is all wood that should be good for 2 or 3 years, stacked out here just like this. Should have plenty of shelf life left. Go to our next pile down here. This is all oak. Just split this at the start of winter and throughout winter. This is all plenty of shelf life left on it. It's not even seasoned yet. So it's going to take about a full year, year and a half to season that wood. And this is the leftovers, what we have left of the original cherry wood that we split. I'll put a link to that video. We split a lot of cherry wood one summer, and you can see it is in an IBC tote with cover. But like I said, cherry is the wood for me with the lowest shelf life. And look at this here on the outside. It's just, you know, rotting away. This is wood that I definitely should have pulled in and burned this winter, because it's almost at the end of the shelf life. You can see the center is still solid here, but all the outside of it, pull another piece down here, it's just getting all pithy and kind of rotting away from the outside in. Now these pieces that are up against the very top of the tote, you can see they're still pretty good shape inside and outside. They don't get much weather because they're completely protected. But anything, especially like along this edge where some water still gets into it, down here at the bottom, you can see this one's rotting away pretty good. That's really not even a good piece of firewood anymore. Pretty rotted. So this is what happens when cherry firewood gets to the end of its shelf life. So I'm definitely not an expert on what happens when firewood is beyond its shelf life, but I would imagine less BTUs, less heat, more ashes, more smoke. At least that's my experience with firewood that starts to get pithy or that rotted look to it. So like I said, we've got lots of firewood here that we need to take advantage of in the next few winters to burn. Now this winter we burned less firewood than ever because it was so mild. So I'm only at just under a quart of firewood burned all winter long. Now we could have a very cold March, who knows? And we could even have winter into April. But so far I've burned less firewood, which means my stockpile is growing, which is great news for future years. I just need to make sure I don't let it go beyond its shelf life. So make sure you leave those comments down below on shelf life of firewood. How long do you store it to get it seasoned, and then how long after that do you consider the shelf life to still be good? It's going to vary based on the type of wood, on how you store it, and where you're located. So I'm interested in reading those comments down below. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you found it informative and entertaining, please give us a big thumbs up down below. Lots more videos coming up because we're starting to get into spring and summer, and there's all kinds of projects planned. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again the next time. Here's some more examples of standing deadwood that's already using up some of the shelf life. So I need to get this tree taken down right there. That's still good firewood at this point, but it's not going to have much time left in it once I get it down and split up. Here's a cherry right here that's mostly rotted away, but might have some good firewood in it. Maybe at least firewood good enough for outside fires or camping. But lots of firewood in the woods there that some of it is already using up shelf life even before I get a chance to take it down.